Ciao amici! For this DIY octopus costume, we are going to be using bolts of Oly-Fun craft fabric. I am using jelly to make the body, Orchid to make the little suckers on the tentacles, and to create the skirt that's like water, blueberry Oly-Fun. The reason we're using bolt is that I can just use one continuous piece to make my costume. Let me show you how. To give you an idea of what this is going to look like, I'm going to turn this big sheet of Oly-Fun into two of these. This is the front, and then I'm going to be making the back of the costume, the same piece. I took one large sheet from the bolt to make a bubble-like top, so that's the octopus head. We want it to be round and bubbly looking. And then here are 4 of those fun tentacles attached. So this is just the first step, and then we're going to keep adding detail to it. So let me show you how I made this. So you want to start with your bolt, roll it out on your work surface, and you want to measure the length of the child who's wearing the costume and then add at least 2 feet, because we want those tentacles to really be long so we can curl them up later. So in my case, my model is about 4.5 feet tall, so I cut 6.5 feet of Oly-Fun fabric from the bolt. Now the way this fabric is on the bolt is like most fabrics, it's folded in half, like that. So after I cut my sheet, then I cut along the seam so that I had 2 lengthy strips, like this one. So first I'm going to show you how to pin and sew the top, and then I'll show you how to pin and sew the tentacles. In order to create the neckline, I'm taking some ribbon in a purple color. This was as close as I could get to matching my fabric. And then I'm going to pin down along the top layer, like so, to create the drawstring top for the neckline. Once that's done, we're going to make the gathered waist. You want to measure your model from their chin to their hips. We want this to be a little bigger because when we cinch it up, it's going to kind of poof out the fabric and give us that octopus head. So we folded that and lined it up. I'm going to pin it because we're going to sew here to make another drawstring strap. Okay, so to cover what we've done so far, we've pinned this area that we're going to sew to make the drawstring at the neckline. We pinned this area to sew to make the drawstring at the waistline, and all this remaining fabric will become the tentacles. So let me show you what we're doing with that. Everything that is under the waist here will be the tentacles. So all that's left to do is divide this strip of fabric into 4 sections. So remember, this is one piece for the front or the back. It's got 4 tentacles, and then the other one on the back will also have 4 to give us 8 for our octopus. So we're going to want to measure, cut this in half, and then cut each strip in half to make 4 even rectangles. So I took a break to head to my sewing machine and I stitched up the top neckline. It's going to be like a drawstring. We're going to gather that later to make the top. The waist has been sewn. The tentacles that I pinned up have also been sewn. And what I did at the end here was I tapered it. So now I need to cut off that excess fabric. Otherwise it's going to make it really hard to flip this inside out. Okay? So here's the front. My tentacles are inside out, so now I need to reverse them all. Luckily, Oly-Fun fabric has a nice texture to it that makes it easier to reverse tubes like this, especially something this long. So I'm going to take a few minutes to flip all these inside out before moving to the next step. Whew, okay, that was a workout. We've got some tentacles. And if you don't hate me yet, this will probably make you not like me very much. Next we're going to take Poly-Fil Fiber Fill and start stuffing these tentacles. What I found was easiest was to take like a large dowel rod so that I could slide some stuffing in here. And obviously, since these tentacles are so long, we're going to need some help pushing the stuffing down. Okay, so get comfy, put on a favorite TV show, play some music, because this part is going to take a while, but it looks amazing when you're done. Even though I'll admit I did find myself wishing that Octopi only had like 4 tentacles instead of 8, because it's a lot of stuffing. Let's see, with that dowel rod I can push this all the way to the end. Gotta push a little bit more there. And then obviously I still have a long ways to go. Alright, after they are all stuffed, then we can go in and sew off the top so that our padded tentacles stay together. To make the water skirt that will cover up the child's legs and go under the octopus tentacles, we're using the blueberry Oly-Fun. I'm cutting a piece that will fit around the child's waist 1.5 times. I'm going with the drawstring waist again because I like something that's easy to take off quickly, especially with kids having to go to the bathroom and stuff. But it would also be easy to put elastic inside, and then that way it's stretchy like a tutu, and you can pull it on and off that way if you have elastic. So again, I'm going to pin the ribbon that I'm using in place, and then pin my line here where I'm going to sew to create that drawstring waistband. So the base for my water skirt is done. And now all that's left to do is cut some waves. I'm going to do each layer separately so I can create some volume. So some will be wider, some will be narrower. And when we cinch the waist, it'll create a fuller effect. So if I just kind of wiggle my scissors back and forth, we'll make waves. Alright, so there's our waves. It's kind of like a hula skirt, right? So when we cinch this up, to tie it on as a skirt, see how it creates that wave effect? So it'll look like there's a tumbling ocean underneath our octopus tentacles. I just want to keep gathering this until we've created the effect that we want, or until it's the right size to fit the child's waistline. If you want to, and you know this is only going to be used on one child, once you get it to the right size, you can tie some knots or sew the ends so that you don't have to keep gathering it every time. In order to make the circles for the suction cups on the tentacles, I cut a stack of squares using the Orchid Oly-Fun fabric. Just use a cup to trace the circles. And if you have a good pair of scissors, you can cut through multiple layers of Oly-Fun at once, which makes this pretty quick. You could also use your die cutting machine with circle dies if you want more precise circles. But I think these are pretty good. Then you're going to take a circle, fold it in half, fold it in half again. See where that folded edge is? Just cut one of the folded edges, like so. Okay, see that? So that what I'm going to do next is use a little bit of fabric glue to overlap and glue that, and you can make it more or less depending on how suctiony you want your cup to be. Okay, so use fabric glue to make a bunch of suction cups to stick on the tentacles. Also, before you glue the circles, you could add glow-in-the-dark paint. Oly-Fun fabric is paintable, so if you want this to be reflective at night, it would be a really good idea. I think these circles would be a great spot for adding the fluorescent paint so that it glows as your child is out trick-or-treating. I'm taking my fabric glue. It dries pretty quickly. You could also use a low temp glue gun or even sew these if you want to. Let's see how quick that is. Now I've got my suction cup. Later I'm going to put the completed costume on a dress form because I do want these tentacles to curl up. So some of them I might curl like this and stitch it in place so that it holds. And then where my sewing line is here to kind of hide it, I'm going to glue those tentacles on top to hide some of my seams. Some of these at the waist here where we made that cinched waist, you could always just stitch the very end of the tentacle here so that it doesn't drag on the ground. And again, glue on or sew on the suction cups, depending on the age of the child. I think if someone really little is wearing this, I'd probably sew these on so they don't pop off. An older child, you'd probably be fine with the fabric glue. It should last the night. So, all that's left to do is to make a whole bunch of suckers to stick on these tentacles, assemble the costume, and finish it off with the tentacles. Be back in a little bit with the finished result.